Don Silvano's funeral drew enemies, allies, and opportunists alike. Under a gray sky, his casket was lowered into the earth, surrounded by stone-faced men in black suits and mirrored sunglasses. Mateo stood at the front, expression unreadable, hands clenched behind his back. Eduardo gave a hollow speech, full of praise and grief, but his words felt rehearsed, too smooth, too careful. As the last shovel of dirt hit the coffin, Mateo whispered under his breath, "I'll find you, whoever you are." Time has passed since the death of Don Silvano. Mateo has taken over the Ortega cartel. Though young, he's already commanding with calm fury. The streets whisper his name. Politicians respect him. Enemies fear him. But his heart is restless. Power means nothing if there's no one to share it with. At a charity gala in Guadalajara, Mateo meets Luciana Vargas Veligan, poised and completely out of place among corrupt officials and crime lords. She's witty, educated, different. Luciana laughing, "So you're the infamous Mateo Ortega. I expected taller and scarier." Mateo grinning, "You're lucky. I left my scary face at home." They talk, they dance. Something starts. Mateo sends her flowers. She makes him laugh. They go on quiet getaways to wine country, away from the cartel's chaos. Luciana says she works in nonprofit development, helping rebuild neighborhoods ruined by cartel wars. She speaks with passion, and Mateo listens. Their love grows fast, but it doesn't feel rushed. It feels real. Mateo's inner conflict while falling in love. Mateo still carries pain. Late at night, he studies his father's ledger, tearing at it. She found him sitting in his office. He tells her about his father's death, and she holds him close, eyes full of genuine emotion. "He would be proud of the man you've become," she says. The wedding is breathtaking. White roses, silk suits, music from a golden age. Everyone attends. Even rival bosses nod in respect. Mateo stands before his bride, looking like a king. Luciana's smile never breaks. They are husband and wife. That night, in their honeymoon suite, Mateo whispers, "I never believed I'd love again." Luciana touches his face. "Now you don't have to be alone anymore." In the soft glow of a hospital room, Luciana cradled her newborn son, the future wrapped in a pale blue blanket. Her face, flushed with exhaustion, was lit with a rare, quiet joy. Beside her stood Mateo, the once relentless enforcer now transformed. His eyes, once hardened by violence, now glimmered with something else. He's perfect," Mateo whispered, staring at the tiny boy in Luciana's arms. She smiled gently. "He's our future." They named him Marco, after Mateo's father, the legendary Don Silvano. But, in the world they lived in, peace was always temporary, far from the warmth of the hospital. Eduardo Moreira met with his remaining loyalists in a dimly lit room. His empire had crumbled, but his bitterness had not. Eyes sharp, voice low, he laid out his new plan. They nodded, but even they knew going after Mateo wouldn't be easy, especially now. Back at the estate, Mateo stood over his sleeping son. The empire his father built now rested on his shoulders, and in his arms lay the one person who made him question it all. But vengeance still burned in him. Silvano's murder was still unsolved. The name El Madrigal haunted his nights. "I'll make them pay, Papa," he whispered, his voice tight with purpose. "I swear it." That evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills, Mateo and Luciana stood on their balcony. The baby slept soundly in Mateo's arms, unaware of the world that awaited him. Luciana turned to Mateo. "He'll be a great man." Mateo's eyes stayed on the horizon. "And I'll make sure he never has to become what I did." But far off in the distance, hidden among the trees, Eduardo watched, silent, calculating. His time was coming. Rain lashed the windows of Mateo's study, matching the storm inside him. The door creaked open. Eduardo stepped in, cold and calm. "It's time we talk." Mateo didn't look up. "About what?" Another lie. Eduardo smirked but said nothing. Then a soft knock. Luciana entered, eyes clouded with fear. She looked between the two men, then at Mateo. "There's something I have to tell you," she said quietly. "I was working with Eduardo. I was sent to destroy you." The words hit like a bullet. Mateo froze. "My father was killed by yours. I was supposed to get close, gain your trust, make you pay." Silence. Only the storm answered. Luciana's voice broke. "But I fell in love with you. I couldn't go through with it." "Mateo, I'm sorry. Mateo's stare cut through her. You lied to me. You built a life on betrayal. Before she could respond, Eduardo stepped forward, voice venomous. She was never yours, Mateo. Just another player in the game. But the game was over. Gunshots rang out in the distance. Eduardo's men had arrived. Get down, Mateo shouted, dragging Luciana to the floor. They both crawled to where Baby Macro is all of them on the floor. The house shook with gunfire, and as the chaos exploded around them, Mateo realized the war wasn't over, it had only just begun. The war was over, the blood now dried, now replaced by the quiet chirping of birds and the rustle of wind in the trees. He stood alone at the edge of the garden, where his father Don Silvano Ortega used to sit. A man once feared, now a memory. The same garden where his son Marco now played with a wooden truck. Unaware of the darkness that has threatened to consume their family, Luciana stepped outside, holding her shawl close as the wind brushed against her. Her eyes met Mateo's, and sure, scared, the weight of her betrayal still hung between them like fog that refused to lift. But Mateo didn't flinch. I've seen death, he said quietly, and I've caused it. I've hunted down enemies for years, but I never imagined the hardest fight would be the one inside me. Luciana lowered her gaze. He paused, watching Mako in the distance. And you gave me a reason to feel again, even if it started with a lie. Luciana took a slow step closer. I forgive you, Luciana. Tears filled her. Because I choose peace. Because Mako deserves a home with love. I still love you. Elsewhere, Eduardo, once a feared strategist, now sat alone in a dark prison cell, his empire gone. His allies vanished. In a quiet visit, Mateo stood outside his cell. Eduardo met his gaze with disbelief. I expected death, Eduardo muttered. I gave you something worse, Mateo replied. Silence, solitude, time to think, then start with repentance. In a world stained by blood and betrayal, Mateo chose a different path, not weakness, but strength. The strength to forgive, the strength to rebuild, and the strength to love again. Forgiveness isn't forgetting, it's choosing peace over pain. Love, even when born in chaos, can become a sanctuary. Family isn't about perfection, it's about healing together. Repentance is the first step to redemption. And power, true power is not in taking lives, but in saving them. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear that forgiveness is possible even in the darkest places. Subscribe for more powerful stories that speak to the heart. And remember, even the deepest scars can heal when love leads the way.